The date is May 5th, 2025, and Tyrese Haliburton is about to do one of the most infamous celebrations ever. But before we get to that, let's go back 30 seconds. With under a minute left, the Pacers were down 7. Pascal Siakam would get fouled and go to the line for 2 free throws.
Siakam contact point nearly got it to drop.
Siakam, one of the veterans of the team, is born on April 2nd, 1994. 3 days before his birth, a sports movie by the name of Major League 2 will be released. A fictional story about the Cleveland Indians' pursuit for a shot at the World Series. In one of the more memorable parts of the film, Indian star Pedro Serrano will be confronted by his teammate in the locker room.
You have no manners!
Later in the film, Serrano will prove otherwise.
Canatella delivers. Serrano swings, and it's a long drive to deep left field. Way back. Packer to the wall. This ball is gone. And the Indians...
Hence, the Big Balls Dance was born. Now back to our own Cleveland game. Pascal Siakam will end up missing both free throws, but luckily, Aaron Nesmith will clean up the mess.
Clincher against Milwaukee, look at that stick back!
Then draws a charge to give the Pacers the ball back. Siakam then would make up for his past mistake, cutting the lead to just 3.
Siakam attacks and lays it in!
The following possession, Andrew Nembhard would steal the ball.
Oh my goodness. There's a steal! Nembhard!
And everybody in the building knows where the ball is going to. In 2000, a future star would be born in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. His name, Tyrese Haliburton. Also in Wisconsin at the same time was another star guard, Sam Cassell, who was just dealt to the Bucks in a 3-team trade the previous season.
I am the leader of this team. I determine, not all the wins and losses, but majority of them.
While on the road one night, Sam Cassell would decide to channel surf in the hotel. The movie that he stumbled upon, none other than the 1994 film Major League 2. Cassell was especially enamored with one part of the movie, this scene.
Big boss, I like that. I'm stealing that. I'm stealing that. It was the old movie. So I started making big shots as a young player. I said, I got something for him.
Now, there's no footage of the early years of the Big Balls Dance that I could find, but in the 2004 NBA playoffs against the Kings, Cassell would put the Big Balls Dance on the world stage, doing it in Game 2 after this big shot.
Cassell!
And you can see why he wanted to break it out. The Wolves were the number 1 seed, Kevin Garnett was the MVP, Cassell would also make his first All-Star game that season. They were on top of the world. This would become the most infamous celebration of all time. As the Wolves coach Flip Saunders would later recall, we lost the championship by that. When Cassell did that, he had an avulsion fracture in his hip, so from that perspective, I've always been against that type of thing. Cassell himself, however, would fight back against that notion, saying in an interview with Jovan Buha, I wish it was. I had surgery. I didn't know somebody had to have some major surgery dancing. Saunders' son, Ryan, would double down on his dad's claim, saying, quote, my dad said he would have maybe an NBA championship if Sam didn't do that dance. Now, I've saved you guys the trouble by doing some of the research myself. Nothing conclusive. But while the series was ongoing, there only existed a back injury for Cassell. However, after Game 2, Cassell would have his worst stretch of the series. So much so that in Game 7, the commentators would say this pre-game.
And look at Sam Cassell, 3 of 16 the last 5 games from the three-point line. He's struggling getting lift on his shot, and I guarantee you Sacramento is going to test him defensively here early to see how well he's moving.
In the following series, the back and the hip were listed as injuries in the reports. The Wolves would lose the series in 6, and Cassell will be absent the final 2 games. Now, despite maybe injuring himself with this celebration, Cassell would make it his trademark, doing it with every team he was with.
Sam Cassell loves these moments.
Sam Cassell!
And from 2000 to 2009, this dance was exclusive to Cassell and sometimes his teammates. including this game on March 17th, 2008 against the Spurs.
Got it! A three-point field goal for Sam I Am!
I believe this to be the final time Cassell has ever broken out the dance. When researching this era, there were pretty much no discourse about the celebration. No articles, no think pieces, nothing. But everything was about to change on January 14th, 2009. On January 14th, 2009, the Lakers would find themselves in San Antonio on the second night of a back-to-back. The previous night, they were in a dogfight against the Rockets. Down one, this dagger from Kobe Bryant would ultimately seal the deal.
Kobe, the long three. Yes! The best finisher of the game has just done it again.
Now 24 hours later, Kobe finds himself in the exact same position as the night prior, and managed to do this.
4-second difference. Bryant a three. Good! Kobe a three!
Now, did you catch that? I remember watching this game as a kid and thinking Kobe did a really cool wobbly dance. It wasn't until the camera cut to this angle that everyone knew what he just did. The Kobe Bryant just did the big balls dance. Even though the Lakers lost the game, the celebration is what lives on. Now, remember how I mentioned earlier that from 2000 to 2009, outside of Cassell and maybe some of his teammates, there was no one else doing the dance? Well, like most things in life, once Kobe Bryant does it, it becomes a phenomenon. Right away, a couple weeks after Kobe's celebration, on February 3rd, Andre Iguodala would attempt his own big balls dance.
If they call him, he's ready to go. There's Andre Iguodala.
They need that from him.
The phenomenon has begun. But after the 2010 season, with Commissioner David Stern likely fearing the rapid influence of the dance, Stern would put the hammer down.
David Stern, called me into his office and he said, we got to stop that. We can't have our kids, doing that shit, Sam. But now all you do it, $25,000.
The first victim, Eddie House, who would be fined $25K for hitting his only bucket of the game.
Eddie House takes the three and takes the lead!
And look, Eddie House hasn't even had any opportunities here today. That was his first shot.
But for the players, that didn't matter. If anything, it gave him more power. In fact, the dance would reach its peak in popularity from 2013 to 2014, with 5 players doing it over the course of 1 year. Marco Bellinelli will become the first non-American to do the dance.
Bellinelli open for three, yes! Marco Bellinelli!
And Andre Blatch will be the first to be fined doing it from the bench. Kevin Martin will be the final of this cohort during his celebration on November 3rd, 2014. Post-game, his coach Flip Saunders will make that infamous comment that I showed you earlier in the video about how the big balls dance may have caused him a championship. While the fines may not have slowed down the players from doing the dance, this comment certainly did. Within the next 5 seasons, the big balls dance would only be done once. The one exception? Well, in 2016, the big balls dance will make a one-off rare appearance. The dancer, Julius Randle. Now, this happened during Kobe's retirement tour, and Kobe at this point in his career was notoriously known to be stoic towards big moments. But for this particular moment, if you look closely, Kobe couldn't help but break out a smile. And it also makes me break out a smile, knowing that in Kobe's farewell season, he was able to witness the dance on the court one final time. 3 seasons later, Klay Thompson would be the next to break out the big balls dance, as Thompson would do it in the second quarter of a finals game against Toronto.
I'ma call him Clay. I'ma call him Clay.
2 seasons later, Fred VanVleet would take the torch from Thompson and do his own big balls dance for the Raptors.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah!
Okay, isn't it kind of crazy that Cassell was a part of the 2008 Celtics team that famously did this dance, and they faced the Lakers in the finals. The following season, Kobe incorporates it. Now in 2019, Klay does it in the finals, and a couple seasons later, VanVleet incorporates it. Kinda beautiful. While these gentlemen are battling it out in the NBA, the protagonist of our story, Tyrese Haliburton, is also growing up, making a name for himself in high school as a 3-star recruit, then playing his way up to being an NBA draft prospect at Iowa State. Throughout his adolescence, there was one player that Haliburton looked up to.
Like any kid born in 2000, LeBron was my favorite player growing up. You know what I mean? And it's hard for him not to be for a lot of us. And so growing up, I was a Cavs fan, then a Heat fan, then a Cavs fan again, then a Lakers fan before I got drafted. You know, it's just how it went.
In 2021, Haliburton's idol would find himself in a road game in Haliburton's future home. Playing without Anthony Davis, LeBron James knew he had to put the team on his back, hitting dagger after dagger. Then, James, like previous greats, would find himself tempted to do the infamous dance.
Launches a three. Got it! The king! The king from distance!
The three, long distance, the shot clock was becoming an issue.
Later that season, Haliburton would be traded to the Pacers, a trade that absolutely devastated Tyrese. Over the years, just like he did in college, Haliburton would build himself up, going from a 12th overall pick to a perennial NBA All-Star. Yet, before the 2025 playoffs, NBA players seemed to be non-believers, voting Haliburton as the most overrated player in the league. Now Tyrese Haliburton, battling the team he once cheered for, with the entire weight of the world on his shoulders, will get the rebound off his own free throw miss. What happens next? Well, you already know.
Haliburton steps back and hits.
And what better way to cap it off than with the most iconic celebration ever, on the soils of where the big balls dance originated. A celebration in the NBA is often more remembered than the results of a game, but in this case, I'd say it's pretty equal. The pride, the joy, the pain, the literal pain, are all what makes this dance iconic. Cassell taking inspiration from a movie, then having that take a life of its own, proves that this has now transcended sports. This is art. From one generation to the next, from one team to the next. May the dance continue to live and evolve. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. And YouTube thinks you'll like this video, so maybe watch that next. Thank you. Have a great day.